Employee and Community Relations. And Amber's ranking chair is
Myself.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are going to be discussing ordinance 2026-29, which is having to do with the fire department employees. We have some folks here to talk to us this evening that are going to be going over what all this is going to be doing and affecting. I know that this is something that we have discussed. Beforehand, so I guess it's going to be brushing up on some of those previous conversations. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council.
We have another.
There we go.
Swap it out.
Just like LA. 20 people to one thing.
Use your teacher voice.
Good evening, Council. Thank you. Thanks for hearing me out and listening to what we're doing here. Like Councilman Ruckman had said, this is not really new business. This is part of our strategic plan that we're going to incrementally increase our staffing for preparations of going our East Side Station or Station 3. So we actually had budgeted and appropriated funds for this, but we were waiting until watching the revenue streams to an appropriate time to come to council with this.
Could you go over just what it is from the legislative perspective, what it is that we are going to be doing with this ordinance?
Just going to be increasing our number of firefighters that's on there, for bringing it up from 34 to 36 so that we can, also with our moving one employee.
Yeah, this is actually, we're adding 3 firefighters, but it looks like we're only adding 2 plus the
Community risk.
community risk assessment officer. Council previously added that position, but we had just left it as a firefighter. Here we're breaking it out so that everyone sees that we have that dedicated position. And so then we're adding two additional firefighters plus that one. So what we're actually doing is increasing by 3 firefighters. So one will go to each one of the 3 shifts, the A, B, and C.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so it's actually 3 full-time positions, but it sort of looks a little funny just because of the way we were making sure to break out the community risk reduction inspector, who's the assistant fire marshal. Oh, shit. Sorry.
Got it on? We can hear you now? All right.
Well, I'm loud enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to say it all again. No, for the record. Council, do you have any questions? I know for some of us, we've talked about this before in the adjustment, and talked about the adjustment, and I know that part of the plan has been, or part of the discussion moving forward has been to actually bring more staff online so that we don't have to do it all at once, because we know as we have, more calls and we bring more manpower in to cover those calls, that this is allowing us to absorb that much more easily than it would be to wait until the last minute to try and bring a bunch of people on board.
That is correct. We wanted to get our staff trained up by the time that Station 3 opens up. That way there's no gap in coverage of our trained personnel.
Does anyone have any other questions? If not, I think that's it from me. Thank you very much, sir. I will be giving this a second reading this evening.
All right, thank you.
And we're going to adjourn the employee community relations. We're going to move now to finance and budget with Mr. Mahan to discuss ordinance number 2026-30.
Thank you, sir.
Enterprise fleet.
Council, in front of you, I believe you should all have a enterprise fleet synopsis. We listened to a presentation on that. Several city officials, mayor, safety service director, myself, fire, police, and streets, and Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I believe you have a guest here to explain this to us.
Yes, thank you, Councilman and Mr. Chair and Council. This is something that we wanted to entertain, looking at our fleet and how often we have to make maintenance and replace vehicles. We thought we would entertain the thought of pursuing a lease program, and so this is one of the reasons why we we started negotiating with Enterprise Fleet. And Brett Yutzi is here from Enterprise to be able to explain the program, how it works, and answer all of your questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brett.
Yep. Good evening. Thanks for having me out here. I'll do my best in the short time frame to explain the program a little bit. I'll start with.
They have this also.
Okay,
They
fantastic. But I'll start with a little bit about what Enterprise is, and then go into like why we're here today. So I'm sure you heard of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Enterprise Fleet Management, right? We're a brand under Enterprise Mobility. So out of all of our portfolio, we make up the largest transportation company in the world. So you can imagine that, any inefficiencies that we have within our fleet, how that could really impact our bottom line. So the resources that we use to manage our vehicles are the same resources that we're going to give to all of our commercial and government entities to help manage theirs. So government is our fastest growing segment in our business today. We work with over 50, local government entities from a fleet management aspect. And I really just, reach out to different communities to see how we can help. So I reached out to Tanner and said, hey, let's take a look at your fleet. Let's see if there's any opportunities where we could help. So I'll spend the rest of a little bit of time just kind of explaining, what we found during our analysis. I'll recommend a fleet strategy that we can improve safety, reduce operational costs, create budget stability, and establish a sustainable long-term vehicle replacement plan. From a high level, really simply, we're going to remove from a reactive approach to a proactive fleet management strategy that's going to replace vehicles on a planned life cycle and then leverage the equity that already exists in the fleet today using a lease program. So we analyzed the city's fleet, found around 87 vehicles with an average age of approximately 8.5 years, an average holding period of 12 years. While many of these vehicles continue to operate, the age of the fleet is beginning to create some challenges. Right, so 36% of the fleet is more than 10 years old. Maintenance expenses continue to increase as vehicle age. Older vehicles have lower resale values and generate less equity when replaced. And the city's challenged by inconsistent capital replacement budgets and is often forced to replace vehicles only when they become difficult or expensive to operate. From a safety standpoint, we've also identified a number of vehicles that predate many of the driver assistant and safety technologies that are standard today. They include things like backup camera, electronic stability control, rear automatic braking, and other important advancements that became common equipment today. The result is that the fleet costs more to maintain and is more difficult to budget for and exposes employees to safety concerns. Our recommendation is to establish a structured fleet life cycle program through Enterprise Fleet Management. So out of the 87 vehicles that you guys see, I think it's on slide 5, we've put together a 10-year analysis. Now you'll notice the number of vehicles on there is 47. The reason why there's 40 not in there is because it doesn't quite make sense to cycle out every single vehicle in your fleet today, right? So police vehicles wouldn't be in this model because you've got $20,000, $30,000 worth of aftermarket. Your 1-ton cab chassis, right? Those have a lot of aftermarket on it. Now they can certainly be on a lease program, but we're going to set those up a little bit differently simply because you're investing a lot of capital into those. But why is it important to get to a life cycle, right? There's an effective time to replace a vehicle, and it's often before your maintenance costs escalate, and then the resale value deteriorates. So by replacing vehicles at the right time and having Enterprise use our infrastructure to sell vehicles, you're actually going to see an increase in your budget. So strategies will include developing a planned replacement schedule over the next 10 years. So you'll see that on that slide 5. Leveraging an open-ended lease model structure that allows the city to retain equity and increase your cash flow. Using the vehicle proceeds to help fund future replacements. Conducting regular fleet reviews and life cycle analysis to ensure vehicles are being replaced at an optimal time. We can actually fix maintenance costs on a number of vehicles in your fleet, and then provide detailed reporting, maintenance oversight, and budget forecasting tools for management and council review. So rather than reacting to breakdowns and unexpected costs, the city gains a predictable plan that can be reviewed and adjusted accordingly. The financial benefit to this approach, right, is it's fixed. You guys know exactly what your budget is going to be each year. Our analysis indicates that from going on a program like this, we're going to move your maintenance costs that's averaging right now about 67 cents per vehicle per month to $47 per month. We also estimate approximately a 20% fuel expense decrease through the use of newer and more fuel-efficient vehicles. The current fleet contains substantial equity that can be unlocked through a managed replacement program. The analysis there estimates just on those 47, right, more than $293,000 that capital can be generated from the sale of aging vehicles just implementing in year one. The projected savings exceeds about $329,000 while creating a more predictable annual operating structure. But perhaps most importantly, this approach transforms the vehicle replacement from large sporadic capital requests into a more manageable and sustainable long-term funding strategy. From an operational and safety standpoint, right, newer vehicles mean improved reliability, less downtime, better fuel efficiency, lower maintenance requirements, and lower costs, which I've shown there, and access to modern safety technology. The city also gains access to enhanced reporting, fleet analytics, maintenance oversight, inventory visibility, recall tracking, budgeting support, and annual strategic reviews. This gives leadership greater transparency and control while reducing administrative burden on staff. In closing, right, the recommendation isn't, it's not simply about replacing vehicles. It's about creating a long-term fleet strategy that improves employee safety, reduces operating expenses, stabilizes a budget, but then maximizes the value of taxpayer assets. So by moving from a reactive placement, by moving from a reactive replacement model to a proactive life cycle management program, the city can modernize its fleet over the next 10 years, capture existing equity, reduce maintenance and fuel expenses, increase your cash flow, and establish a sustainable path forward. That is all I have. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, sir, thank you. Are these the vehicles, these include the police cruisers?
If you're referring to the model that we put together right there,
Yep.
those are not included in those.
Okay.
We have a separate model for the police units.
Okay.
And the reason why is because those would probably be on a different cycle plan than what we would have on those. Simply because your aftermarket costs are really expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this legislation then only covers our non-emergency fleet? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Could you repeat the maintenance cost estimate? I didn't catch, you said there, you tracked our current maintenance cost per vehicle per month, and then you gave an estimate of how you could lower that. Could you repeat that for me?
Absolutely. So we've estimated right around 67 cents, 67.83 to be exact, per vehicle per month. By moving to a program where we can fix your maintenance costs, right? So everything is covered. We can actually move that over to a bucket now where it's fixed at 47.54, right? So after those are fixed through the term of the vehicle, so if we put that on 5 years, you don't pay more than whatever happens to that vehicle. So when we cycle that vehicle out, you know exactly what you're going to spend.
And the vehicles that are, I know we're not talking emergency vehicles, so understand now we're talking about street trucks, engineering trucks, but still those vehicles are used every day.
Right.
Is that, explain to us, will they have to be down for a couple weeks to go somewhere for maintenance, or can that maintenance be done locally? Help us understand the response time on the maintenance.
Yeah. So maintenance can be handled in-house, and it can also be utilized on our program and our shops that we have. There's several shops in the Mount Vernon area that are being utilized by a lot of your department head, folks that we actually sat down and made sure that they were on that program. They can choose to take it to either of those. So whatever issue arises, they would take it to that shop, and they would already have the VIN under Enterprise Fleet Management that's covered, and it's already billed to through that department. Now, if they choose to do something in-house, you can do that as well.
Well, I guess I meant more locally than than
Yeah.
right to repair, but I appreciate you bringing that up as well. Council, I'm going to give this its first reading this evening. Do you have additional questions for this gentleman? All right.
Basically, the city would own none of these vehicles. You would own them all. We just lease them.
That's correct.
So if something would happen, we decided to get out. We have no vehicles. You own them.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah. And these are set up, more from a financial aspect of it. These are set up on term debt, right? So essentially when the open and lease model program, if something were to happen in year 3, 4, whatever that is, whatever we sell that vehicle for, that is your equity to retain. Now, how you choose to handle that with departments or general fund, that is totally, up to you guys.
I've gone through this a little bit as a school superintendent with buses, where some schools are leasing buses and some schools are buying buses. It'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see how that worked out for them, and what was advantages and disadvantages of both. Okay.
Just are there other cities in our region here who have done this?
Yeah. So there's a reference sheet on there.
Some of this is not easy to read. I don't know what happened to the printer, but it's like some kind of other language or something.
So Licking County, Franklin County, Village of Hebron is most recent. City of Marysville, Delaware County. Those are going to be the ones that are like closest to us right here. City of Lancaster. And I mentioned government is our fastest growing segment in our model today. Right. So, as governments tend to do, they like to see what other governments are doing. Right. So it does take time for change. And that's what, creates, I guess, some fear is the change of things. But we're seeing a rapid growth in this. And I'd be happy to get you more references than the one that's on the paper and ones I mentioned as well.
So maybe in a nutshell, we save money, we save our taxpayers money, and we have better vehicles. Is that truth?
That's correct. Yeah. And the way that they manage the vehicles, right? We're shifting buckets, right? So we're decreasing our operating expenses and we're having a fixed sustainable plan. On that model, out of these 47 vehicles, you can see, if you can read it, there's a sustainable impact, right? So after we're fully implemented in 10 years, we're forecasting that every year it'll save a little over $3,000, right? So it's not like once we're fully implemented, it's going to save you a bunch of money. But if you look at over the 10 years impact by switching to this, we're showing about $330,000 of annual budget from your fleet on those.
Anything else, Mr. Mahan?
I think we're good, sir.
Yeah,
Hey.
I guess I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding these numbers and everything. I mean, obviously, Enterprise isn't a nonprofit organization. I mean, you're a business for profit. So exactly how, and I apologize for not having more time to go through these numbers
Yeah.
in a little bit more detail, but could you briefly discuss or maybe put out some further information is directly how this benefits? I mean, you mentioned, this potentially saving us $300,000 a year. Is there a way to break that down and to point to where we could understand those numbers a little bit better?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can see that on that 10-year model there, I know it's a little small on the handout. Once you get to it, you'll see that orange line that goes across the top, right? So let me know when you're there. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. I think mine's yellow, but okay.
Okay. All right. Here we go. Yeah. So now there's a lot of numbers going on, and with time permitted, I'll try to be brief here. But essentially, in the top left box there, out of the 47 that I'm showing that we analyzed, that's what you guys are doing today. On the box to the right, that is what I'm proposing, being on a fixed maintenance program, and then also cycling these vehicles out proactively. That yellow or orange box that goes across the top, that is essentially what we've estimated your fleet budget at what it is today. So right below that, if you go to year one and you look at your fleet size, right, and you see your annual needs, right, we're recommending that 24 vehicles be replaced in year one. That'll switch from 47 to being owned, right, to 20, and now 24 being leased. So your annual lease payment for these vehicles would be $197,000, but you will get back $293,000 from selling the current fleet that we're suggesting that you replace today. You'll notice your maintenance column come down slightly because
Where the savings is coming from is the fact that we're gonna sell vehicles and lease vehicles, because the vehicles are already an asset regardless of what we do in further lease. That's it. So if I understand this correctly, you're trying to show me a savings from selling off my assets and going to a leasing. That's not so much a savings as it is cashing in a capital asset, is it?
it's cash flow. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
But it's not a savings.
It's more of a cash flow.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yep.
I just want to clarify that.
Yep. So as you continue to move down, you'll see your operating expenses then, decrease, which ultimately is going to lower your fleet budget. Right?
Well, we're running over on time a little bit. I want to get into these numbers a little bit more. We're
Yeah.
just going to give it a first reading tonight
Sure.
and everything like that. And in the meantime, perhaps we can get a little better handle on the numbers and
Yeah,
exactly.
I will, I'll give it its first reading and then ask for another committee meeting at the
Be
next
great.
gathering.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
We're going to adjourn the Finance and Budget Committee. We're going to move now to Streets and Public Buildings with Mr. Severance to discuss the e-bike survey.
Yes, and we need to have time for this. So Mayor, would you start us off, please?
Sure, thank you,
Madison,
Mr. Chair
come on up.
and Council. Council, we passed out two handouts for you. One is this very colorful graphic showing the results of the e-bike survey that Madison Sarver is going to be talking about in a moment. And then also, this is some key takeaway points that our Safety Service Director put together for you. It's a handout that you can also refer to as well. But I will say, before I turn it over to Madison, this is something that the state is looking at very much right now. It is in the committee for Andrea White and State Representative Andrea White from Kettering and State Representative Kevin Miller from Newark are co-sponsoring House Bill 948 right now. We also, so I know they're not in session right now, but they will be coming back, and who knows what will happen. And during the lame duck session, we will find out more, but they have not taken hearings on it yet. And we will
This could
continue.
supersede any legislation we would pass if they pass a state mandate on it?
Your guess is as good as mine, Councilman. Mr. President, I don't know, because we haven't had any hearings on it yet, or they haven't had any hearings on it yet. So we continue to share information and receive information as it becomes available through our connections at MORPC and Ohio Municipal League. So I think everybody's really anticipating hearing how the local survey went, and I'll turn it over to Madison.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My intention is to give you the information overview of the survey that Mr. Salyers put out a few weeks ago. This was released to our local media partners, to social media. We had opportunities for people at First Friday to scan in. So we had 430 responses to our survey, which I hope you realize is a very big deal. A lot of cities struggle with local engagement, and being able to have the opinion of our community in full here, I think, is incredibly important. This is not something unique to Mount Vernon. This is an issue discussed in cities across the state of Ohio right now. Overall, we had quite the show in terms of where people think that e-bikes should be permitted. This was something that pretty overwhelmingly people agreed. You know, e-bikes can be on residential streets, they can be downtown, they can be in city parks, shared use paths, bike trails. However, there was a general consensus that sidewalks were a no-go. People felt pretty strongly that really over 60% no on those of, do you believe that e-bikes should be permitted on neighborhood sidewalks and downtown sidewalks? People felt very strongly in that majority there. And additionally, Mr. Salyers also had a safety component on there, seeing if people riding bikes or drivers experiencing e-bikes on the road, sidewalks, have run into a safety concern, whether that's a near collision, whether that was a I'm not sure if they're gonna, if they see me, if I see them type situation. And 55% of respondents had reported that they had felt unsafe encountering each other. In terms of what's driving these overall safety concerns, the ones we just discussed, the main ones were excessive speed, failure to yield, rider behavior, and that's across the board. This isn't just our teenagers and our kids don't know the rules of biking. It was cyclists in general. So keep that in mind too, that this isn't just kids on e-bikes. This is individuals on e-bikes. Then we also had a question in turn from that of what would you support in terms of regulation? And this is where we're seeing a lot of variation across the state of Ohio right now, and every city seems to have a different need. Respondents suggested highly, 82%, that they would support some sort of regulation around yielding to pedestrians, some sort of regulation around speed limits, specifically variable speed limits depending on where e-bikes are, and then having on more like the 60% and under age restrictions, helmet use, and signage. So the overall interpretation here that I want to get across, because looking through the notes of the actual responses, people are very concerned about a ban, and that seems to not be what the city is looking for, or what respondents specifically were looking for. They are not seeking a broad ban. In fact, there was a comment I wanted to point out that individual had said it's not a battle against the concept, it's an opportunity to make a safer one. And I think that really encapsulates the overall feelings that we received from this survey. People are looking to have location-specific access rules and more behavior-based safeguards, especially where we are seeing a lot of those pedestrians. Our colleges are back, our schools are back, we're seeing more influx downtown. Summer heat's going away, fall's coming out, people are coming out more. So as our city becomes more pedestrian-heavy, more cyclist-heavy, that is definitely a concern. But the biggest opposition are sidewalks, which I was personally surprised by. People were very concerned about driver interaction with e-bikes, but it's actually pedestrian on sidewalks concerns with their interactions on e-bikes. So the recommendations for council consideration, and again, this is a don't shoot the messenger, we're just presenting you all of the information that we can find, and I encourage residents to be emailing all of you their thoughts as well of what they're seeing in your wards specifically to give you a more personalized view if they didn't have a chance. We left this up for a few weeks, but if this is the first time people are hearing about it, it's important to have those discussions. So the first point being looking at location-based framework. Are we going to have something separate for streets, for bike trails, for shared use paths, having designated biking routes? Are we looking at context-sensitive speed rules? So if we're in a pedestrian-heavy area, do we lower a speed limit? And then where people can cruise a bit more without worrying about people, do we up it? What does that look like? Looking at requiring yielding and safe passing. Addressing youth operation and vehicle classification. In the previous city I worked for, New Albany, last year, we had this discussion in depth for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks at council, and they were even looking at implementation of education opportunities from our SROs in schools, but also giving parents resources to be able to educate their kids on proper bike safety, not just e-bikes, just bike safety. Looking at education, signage, and focused enforcement, so really taking that education over like really smackdown enforcement. And then protecting mobility, knowing that this is a form of transportation. That was another note in the survey. E-bikes are not just recreation, but a lot of people were responding that this is a form of transportation for them. So kind of viewing the next steps based on that. So that is really your speed run, your 5-minute speed run of these results. There were about 28 opportunities for residents to respond, whether it was questions, their feelings. So we can obviously go more in depth at a later time, but in the interest of time, I wanted to give you your crash course here, as the Green Brothers would say on YouTube, and open the floor for questions or discussion if we had any.
Yeah, Counselor, I'd like to take a couple minutes. I know we're right at 7:15 here for a break, but any specific questions that you would have out of this?
Usually an e-bike 5 years ago would go 20, 25 miles an hour. How fast are these e-bikes going out?
They can get up there. I know, and I would say it probably depends on the brand and the classification. So there's different classes of e-bikes with different specifications, and I'm definitely not an expert on those. But in New Albany, when we did the research, we had some going over 30 miles an hour in that class 3. So I mean, as the kids would say, they can cook.
Class 3s are supposed to go only 28 miles per hour, but I think there's been some advancement in technology, and so, but it's Class 1, Class 2 are not supposed to go over about 20 miles per hour. Class 1 is a pedal assist. Class 2 is not a pedal assist, but it may look like it has pedals. Class 3 may or may not be a pedal assist, but it will go up to 30 miles an hour. That, I believe, needs to have a license to do that.
E-bike, for it to be classified as an e-bike, they have to have pedals.
Yes.
Everything, if it doesn't have pedals, it's not an e-bike, and it's not allowed on the sidewalks no matter what.
So as a child, Taylor, I think you were going to
Oh,
say
I
something.
was
Go
just,
ahead.
all I was going to say was I feel like the reason that you're seeing these results and the sidewalks being the main concern is because they're riding on the sidewalks. When, if we were to address this, I would almost guarantee that the cars would replace the sidewalks because now they're on the street. So I guess my point is I think it's education and behavior modification to using these more responsibly.
Yeah. So, as a child, I know I grew up having mini bikes, and so that had a gas engine on it. But I have seen some of these that don't have any pedals, and actually probably middle school kids riding these around our town on the streets and sidewalks. And I don't know if that's even legal.
It is not.
Okay, so two were doing it the other day. I saw.
Well,
them.
anything without pedals is considered at minimum a moped, and it could be an electric motorcycle. So, and both of those require licenses.
So that would be one perspective we need to look at, I think, yes. You know, and I, as a cyclist, I mean, I used to average about 6,000 miles a year on a bicycle. So I understand. I would never ride on sidewalks in the downtown. I mean, it's just not even safe. Anybody could walk out of any of those stores and I would plunk them, and both of us would get hurt badly. So
Well,
I think...
bicycles are not allowed on the sidewalks in the central business district by code.
Yes. So I think there are a lot of variables here. I also talked to Randy Kronk, who's the president of the Cocosing Gap Trail, and you know, he wants us to be friendly to this whole thing. He does think education is important, but maybe also limiting these into the downtown sidewalks for sure, especially like South Main and our business district area. So this is a good start. I think we'll probably wait to see a little bit as well what the state does. But, you know, and council will continue to talk about this issue. So I think that's good for now.
Great. Thank you, council.
We're going to adjourn that committee meeting. We're now in recess until 7:30 p.m. We begin the legislative portion of the meeting.